So thanks for joining, Vicky. This should be a really interesting chat. So just to introduce people watching, this is the beginning of our new series of content that Good Pay will be putting out. We're going to be inviting some fantastic guests and producing Q&A videos like this one, guides, webinars, etc. And it's all about how people can do good and share good in the workplace. And today's topic is all about financial well-being and how employers can support their teams. And yeah, really excited to have Vicky on board with us. So, Vicky, do you want to introduce yourself and introduce what you're doing at MaPS?
Oh, thank you, Steve. It's delightful to be here. It's a great start to the new year. The series that you're describing, it sounds really exciting. So I'm really delighted to sort of kick it off. So I'm one of the regional partnerships managers for the Money and Pension Service, and we work within the financial wellbeing space. I operate in West London, and I have counterparts all over the UK. So we're out there to help people. We work with a variety of different organisations, government departments, local government, community services, and employers. And our remit is really to try and spread the word around the importance of good financial well-being and how to get there, because it's a great phrase, but how do you do it? So that's what I do in my job. I think as we progress through this, it will become apparent more detail about what financial well-being means and what I do to try and support people to bring that into their workplace or into their landscape, whatever it might be. In addition to that, we were just having a chat about a new year, another birthday coming. I have had about 5 years, I've had 5 years working at the Money and Pension Service, but before that, I worked in the commercial sector. I worked in logistics, publishing, media, and for nearly 40 years, I've been employed full time. And the concept of financial well-being in the workplace is quite a new one. When I started work, we were given luncheon vouchers, and it was a very, very different place, very different landscape. So I bring a lot of lived experience. I bring a huge amount of really poor financial choices to my role at the Money and Pension Service. So it's one of those things that I've learned the hard way. So I do try and support people to do things in a better way.
Amazing. That's yeah. Thank you. So, kind of yeah, touched on my first question is that the phrase or the word financial well-being. I think it over the last couple of years, it's almost become a bit of a buzz phrase. But how would you define it? So I think there's lots of people that talk about financial well-being, and there's so much content out there. But how would you actually define what financial well-being is?
Really simply, actually, we favour a simple approach, and it's about feeling comfortable and confident. And when you're managing your money, it's as simple as that. It's not being stressed about it. And that obviously means slightly different things to different people. But the,
Yeah.
the crux of that is knowing what's coming in, knowing how much money you've got, feeling comfortable that you can pay your bills, that you can manage your day to day with the resources that you've got. And for other people, they might add on ambition, savings goals, but it's really about knowing what you're doing with your money and feeling comfortable that you can manage your day-to-day financial business and feel okay. It's not about being wealthy. It may not always be about having enough or as much as you might like, but it's having a plan and, as I say, feeling comfortable. That's quite a long definition, isn't it?
No. That's a really, really good way of looking at it. And looking at kind of the current landscape, what would you say the biggest misconception employers have about employee financial well-being?
Well, nobody would talk about it 5 years ago, and then we got the pandemic. Uh, so things have changed a lot. That stemmed from a fear that if you started talking about financial well-being, people would ask for more money. I think that was very much the workplace setting. So it's best not to mention it. that's really moved on now, and it's something, it's a topic that people generally aren't shy about in the same way. The pandemic and the conditions with lockdown and with people sort of not being able to work in the normal way, people being on reduced wages. I think everybody got the idea that sometimes people fall on difficult financial times when they're in work for reasons absolutely beyond their control. So it kind of got away from the sort of the blame thing. So I think that's one of the things that's really helps us reframe the idea of financial well-being, and it's okay to talk about it.
Mm, mm,
Within the workplace, I think it's a logical conversation. Um, Employers handle really complex financial transactions for their employees. You know, they take care of HMRC, they take care of taxation, auto enrollment into pensions. This is all quite complex stuff. So we rely on our payroll department to do lots of clever stuff for us, student loan repayment, all sorts of things, basically keeping us out of jail, making sure that the Treasury are happy with us, and making sure that we get paid on time. So it's a very, very much an important transactional relationship. So I think a really good extension to that is saying, okay, um, we're taking care of all of this. This is actually quite a good place for us to have a conversation about financial resilience, but also about financial education, you know, money and money topics, particularly when you get into the realms of taxation, pensions, it's complicated. So I think employers have a really important part to play, and they shouldn't be shy of it, because starting the conversation about financial well-being, they'll be surprised not everyone's going to start clamoring for a pay rise.
In terms of offering kind of support and how employers can support their employees, firstly, how do you think financial well-being impacts workplace productivity? And what can businesses do to truly address it beyond just kind of offering advice?
Well, we know that if people are financially stressed, if they're worried about money and they're taking that into the workplace, they will be potentially less productive. There have been studies on this, and people talk about presenteeism. But if you're worried about something to do with money, it is very difficult to focus on other things. And actually, um, living a financially stressful life can very easily segue into poorer mental health. It's about a 50-50 split on that one. People are financially stressed, they're more likely to be mentally stressed. So it's going to potentially make people or less productive within the workplace. It can lead to greater absenteeism, but it's also a safety issue. I mean, I can think of lots of jobs where you need people to be absolutely present with what they're doing all of the time. So you don't want them being worried about something else. So I think that's something that is being acknowledged, and I think there's a much clearer understanding about that. And it may not be, I mean, we typically think of people being stressed about money because they haven't got enough, but it might be that they're trying to, for example, enact some kind of complex financial transaction. I think the one that always springs to mind is if someone's trying to buy a house. And if you're in that house purchasing process and the actual the completion date and the toing and froing with the money and waiting for the money, that is incredibly stressful because it's
Oh, I've
completely
had
out of
it.
your
Yeah.
control. And the sums are fantastically large for most of us. You know, that's more money than we've ever had to consider before. So that will have an impact. I actually think that, you know, in those scenarios, if somebody's worried about it, it's probably better that someone suggests either they take the day off or perhaps just let them go home early and get something sorted out.
Yeah, on that, there's also that topic about how some employees can feel a little bit embarrassed or find it difficult to kind of have those conversations. I mean, when you just talked about buying a house, I went through that a couple of years ago, and I remember seeing the numbers. So I've not seen that much money in my life. But yeah, when you come through difficult situations, it can be quite embarrassing. So
Mhm.
it's about employers trying to create that culture in the workplace where employees do feel comfortable in talking to their employer about their financial well-being, because it can be quite difficult to do so because it is a personal issue.
Yeah, we're very British about I know we're British, but we're very British about money. We don't like to talk about it. It's kind of the big taboo. We're far more likely to talk about our health and actually quite intimate details than talk about money. It's a strange thing. It's one of the reasons we have our Talk Money Week campaign every year. In November, it's generally, and that's one of the things we encourage people to do is to talk about money in lots of different scenarios. But as I said earlier, I think the workplace is a good place to start because it is a transactional relationship and payroll is complex, and your employer knows they're one of the few people that know how much you're being paid. You might not talk to your best mate about it in the pub, but they will know. In fact, between a lot of couples, it's not necessarily out there, but they will know exactly how much you're being paid. They'll know what your student loan is if you've got one. They know what your tax code is. So it is actually quite an intimate relationship. I think within the workplace, people might what might be a good thing is a safe space. So talking to your line manager about your money worries or just asking for perhaps just a little bit of guidance or where to go for more information. That could be tricky. People don't like to expose themselves. It's, as I say, it's quite an intimate thing to do. So I think it's around workplaces, employers providing a safe space for those conversations. So it could be within the wellness and well-being remit if they've got well-being champions. And there are opportunities now. It's quite a new thing for sort of financial fitness first aiders or financial first aiders. Money first aid or offer courses to train people to do that, very much like a mental health champion. And I think we'll see more of that. And I think it's a really good thing. Because the important thing, and it's one of the things I always talk about, we offer this great service called Money Helper, which is guidance, information, and support on any money topic you care to mention. But we are not offering advice. We're outside of the regulated financial advice space. So what we're offering is guidance, information, support. And within the workplace, that's really all you can do, unless it's a very specific question, perhaps about, I don't know, a company pension plan or something to do with a payroll deduction.
There's a growing number of apps over the last couple of years that are all about kind of financial well-being, and with the explosion of AI, especially in the last kind of 18, 24 months, are there any risks, do you think, in relying too much on on the apps and on the digital side? And is there more benefit in actually having those conversations with a real human being?
I think it's horses for courses. I think apps and digital repositories for information have their place, and they're very useful, particularly when it comes to money, because it's such a broad topic. There is so much. As I say, our Money Helper website has got masses of stuff on it. Fortunately, it's got a search engine because you could spend your life in there looking at things and being led down rabbit holes and to do with particular money topics because it is complex. So I think there is definitely a place. I love my banking app. Personally, I remember when I used to get paper statements and you kind of lurch from one month to another, kind of a little bit in the dark. I wasn't very, very, very good at, keeping track of things. So I love having a banking app. I think there is a place for them, but it's not everything. Um, and there is a time pretty much with most transactions, and this goes back to the house buying example that I gave earlier, when you're actually going to have to sit down and talk to somebody. If you're getting a mortgage and you're talking to a mortgage advisor, you have to go through probably nearly 2 hour consultation, which is a conversation. And they absolutely nail you to the mast to make sure that you fully understand the implications of this enormous debt you're about to take on and what will happen if you can't service it and what the implications are if interest rates go up or down. And that's something that, I think really spells it out that at some point we are going to have to talk about it. So I think, as I say, it really just depends. If you're getting basic information, you're trying to get some answers, you want something quick, you're preparing for perhaps a money conversation, then digital has its place. But at some point, you're probably going to have to talk to a financial advisor. So having all the information to help you make the right choices when you're paying someone for that conversation, perhaps, is a good thing to do.
Yeah, no, I agree. My person is my mum. So I love the apps. I love the apps, and I think I've got better with my finances over the last couple of years, and the digital aspect of the apps have really helped. But I still need that conversation. And yeah, mummy's great. Mum's
Yeah.
always been good with looking after money. So it is like with anything, it's fine. It's finding that balance. Um, talking about kind of measurement. So if employers were to implement various different schemes or whatever, how do they know that their financial well-being initiatives are working? Is it a case of employee surveys that they need to put out? How can they measure the success?
Yeah, I think you've got to ask people. And that's all you can do. Is ask people if what they're using and how they're using it. Surveys are one of those things. I mean, you could, if you've got a employee consultative group, you could probably do something a bit richer in a format, in some kind of forum. But I think it's going to be around surveying. But I think also it's having realistic expectations about how much people will use these things. One of the conversations, I spend a lot of time talking to people in HR, and one of the conversations is our employers don't seem to be engaging with our employee platforms or our support platforms, our support systems. But the thing is, you don't need them all the time. The important thing with support and information and help is that it's there when you need it. So it's quite normal for people to only engage with for only proportion of the workforce to be engaging with this stuff at any one time. And don't be alarmed if it's only 20%, because you don't need it every day and all day. Think of your own behaviors. You're not seeking information all of the time on all of the topics. It's important to know where you can go when you need it.
So once everyone's watched this video, what's the one step that you can say that employers can take immediately that will help them kind of improve their financial well-being offering?
I just think about being a little bit more creative than the staff intranet. Put stuff. I mean, when do we look at the staff intranet? Generally, we go through our induction, and quite often a lot of people never go
Yeah.
back there. They know they know how to put the holiday online or whatever, but it's just something. So don't rely on putting lots and lots of rich data on your staff intranet, as basically being enough. Well, we've got financial well-being, it's over there, it's parked. It's not enough just to do that. It's about basically bringing that to the fore. And there are lots of ways to do that. Actually, surveys are quite a good way. It's a good way to start the conversation to find out what people might want to know. So, ask the people what they want to know. But there are some, really basic things. If you've got a workforce where a large proportion perhaps work in a warehouse, posters are really handy. Stick a poster on the wall. Tell them about the benefits that you offer in-house. Tell them about where they can go for information elsewhere. Use your payroll communications, for lots of people, particularly people who are working remotely, who might work night shifts when the rest of, when the management team are working during the day. It's your one meaningful interaction you're going to have with your workforce, and let's face it, it's a really welcome one. You got paid, so that can be an avenue as well. Um, and if you're thinking about doing some kind of well-being event, and I think these are becoming more popular, they tend to focus on the physical and the mental well-being. Put some financial well-being in there as well, and that
Absolutely.
can take lots of different forms. It could just be, reminding people about the company pension scheme. It doesn't have to be everything all at once. Just start small. And everybody likes to talk about pensions because everyone likes to think about when they're going to retire. So it's a great place to start the end.
I like that, and I also think there's something in there about just leveraging kind of what's already in place rather than
Mhm.
kind of overhauling systems or creating anything new entirely, and payroll especially. Talk about the power of payroll, and a bit of a plug for what we do at Good Pay with payroll giving. It's extremely easy to implement, and it's a great way that employees can save money via donating through payroll giving rather than other means. And that's a really, really easy thing that employers can just implement and just kind of, it's almost like bolting onto existing systems rather than implementing anything brand new. Um, this has been great so far, Vicky. Just a couple of kind of like final questions. Kind of put you on the spot in terms of what would you say your most important lesson that you've learned from your work at MaPS that you think that kind of every employer should know?
Savings, some kind of emergency savings fund. Um, and creating perhaps an environment where employees can do that. I'm a great fan of direct from payroll saving schemes, because you spend to what's at the bottom of your pay slip. So if people can save through the payroll, they don't see the money, and it's almost like subliminal saving. And I think that's the thing. We've got lots of studies that prove that it works. Um, and it's the thing time and time again that comes out of just a little emergency savings pot can make a huge difference to how people feel on the day to day. If they just know that if something breaks or something goes wrong, I think this comes back to the pandemic as well, that they've got a little bit in reserve. And that little bit can grow to be quite a big bit over time. So I think that's probably the one thing that MaPS has really instilled in me. It's kind of almost like, savings, like cut me open, I'll be like a stick of rock. Um, and it doesn't have to be a huge amount. Some people are quite daunted by that, particularly people on lower incomes or whose all of their income is allocated. But saving up £100 can make a huge difference to how people feel about their day to day.
I'm going to ask you, I've got down here in 60 seconds, but I'm going to ask you in 30 seconds, and I'm going to time you as well. If you had 30 seconds to convince an employer to invest in financial well-being, what would you say?
Um, well, I would say that if your employees have money worries, there's a high probability that they're not working as efficiently or safely as they could be. And this is bad for you and bad for your business. So supporting financial wellness for your workforce will be good for everybody.
It's great. 14 seconds. It's pretty good, Vicky. No, that's this has been great. I think we can end it. We can end the kind of the Q&A there because I think we've covered a lot and it's been really good. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you for having me.